Hey, I ever tell you about the time I went deer hunting with Vinny? Well, what got us started was that Vinny had this friend who had a cattle farm up above Northampton somewhere that was loaded with groundhogs. And anyways, the cattle were stepping in the groundhog holes and breaking their legs and stuff. So the guy tells us, you can shoot all the groundhogs you want. Well, Vinny takes me along because he knowed I had a 220 Swift and he had a Marlin 30-30 lever action, which is too much gun for groundhogs. Hey, but Giannis, let me tell you about Vinny's rifle. I mean, the whole damn gun was nickel-plated. Yeah, I know it don't make it shoot any straighter, but that sure was a beautiful gun. So anyway, this is what we used to do. Well, you know how spooky those groundhogs are. They're like crows. You can't get within 200 yards of them, especially if you're carrying a gun. So there was these two hills with a country road in between. So we'd climb up the one hill, and Vinny would scan the opposite hill with his binoculars, which is a good 300 yards away. And he'd say something like, just to the left of that little apple tree. So I'd lie down, get that old groundhog in my sights. Open sights, too, and no damn telescope. Actually, I'd aim just a hair over the top of his head. Bang! And Vinny'd be staring through his binoculars. It seemed like 5 minutes. All of a sudden, he'd say, holy cow, you got it! So what I mean is, you know that I was a good shot. So anyway, Dominic Serrano had this cabin up near Whitehaven. You remember Dom. Yeah, sure you do. A great big guy. He was a heater up at the pits. Yeah, that Dom. Well, Vinny asked me if I wanted to go deer hunting with him and Dom and a couple of guys from the 48. Well, at first I said no, because I told him, look, I don't want to walk around them woods and have some jerk make a sound shot and bingo, my old lady's a widow. Vinny says, don't worry, we've been feeding the deer all summer. We'll just sit on the back porch, wait for the crack of dawn, and blow their heads off while they're eating breakfast. So what the hell, I didn't have anything else to do, so I says, okay. Well, then he says, you're going to need more gun than that 220 Swift. Well, he says, also I got is a 220 and a pumpkin, and a 12 gauge, I can use a pumpkin ball. He says, nah, you look like a jerk. Get one of the guys to loan you a decent rifle. So anyway, Mickey O'Hallahan loans me a 9mm Mauser, which he told me he took off a dead German during the war. Looked just like me, blonde hair and all. Hey, and it had an aluminum butt plate. I mean, Giannis, don't you think the Germans would have saved their aluminum for airplanes instead of butt plates? Well, anyways, I wanted to go over the long weekend, but Vinny says, nah, Dom's wife don't want us up there tearing the place apart for 4 days. So we decides to go up the night before opening day and come back the next night. So we take off for Whitehaven. I ride with Dom in that 41 Ford panel truck he had, you remember, the blue one? And the other guy's with Dom in his new Buick. Man, did we have the firepower. Vinny had his Marlin 30-30, a 30-40 Craig. The guys from the 48 each had a 30-06, and Dom had his 35 Remington pump, and me, I had my Mauser. Well, we finally get to Dom's place, which I gotta admit was a hell of a joint. 3 bedrooms, a big living room, the biggest damn stone fireplace I ever seen. See, I told you, Giannis, those guys up at the pits made more money than us because they get tonnage off the big mill. Well, anyway, as soon as we get there, Dom starts a fire in the fireplace, and then he cracks open a bottle of wild turkey. We sit around drinking and eating hamburgers that Dom made on the grill. Well, around about 10 o'clock, and he says, we better hit the sack because we got to get up at 3 a.m. He says, what do you mean 3 a.m.? You can't start hunting until 6, and you said all we had to do is wait for him on the back porch. He says, because that's the way we do it. Anyways, at least I get to sleep on the daybed in the parlor because it's nice and warm. I slept like a baby and woke up to the smell of hot coffee. Oh, we sit around drinking coffee and eating fried eggs for about an hour while Dom takes a bunch of apples down to the end of the lot to feed the deer. About 4:30, we go out on the back porch and start waiting for daylight. We're all whispering so we don't spook the deer. Well, daylight comes, no deer. I'm telling you, Jonas, them deer must come down with a serious case of the smarts because 8 o'clock comes, still no deer. Dom says, we'll have to drive the bottoms. And so Vinny and Dom and the guys from the 48 get a bunch of garbage can lids and buckets and hammers that we can make a lot of noise with, and out we goes. Well, Vinny takes me over to the valley and he tells me, look, Carl, we're gonna rustle up the deer and drive them right past you. And he tells me to climb up this big oak tree and shoot the deer when they come by. Well, I says, I can only shoot one deer because I only got one deer tag. He says, listen, there are 5 of us, aren't there? That means you got 5 tags. You got it? I says, yeah, I got it. And then he hollers over his shoulder, unload that gun before you climb up there and before you come down. I says, yeah, I know. So anyway, they walk up the edge of the valley, and about an hour later, they start hooting and hollering and banging them lids, making a hell of a clatter. Giannis, all of a sudden, I seen this buck. You know that statue of a deer on the lawn of the Elks Lodge? Yeah, I know it's an elk, but what I mean is it looked like the statue. Well, I raised the Mauser when he was about 50 yards from me and wait for him to get a little closer. All of a sudden, when he's right on top of me, he just stops and stares at me. So I had that front sight right between his eyes, and he's just looking at me. I mean, hell, I just couldn't shoot the big beauty. So he just turns and trots away. So I'm shaking so bad I damn near fell out of the tree. Then another buck comes flying by, and I don't get a shot at him either. And then a bunch of real small ones, look like big dogs. I mean, hell, I say it was too small. I'd be damned if I was going to bring home one of them. A couple minutes later, Vinny comes running up and says, "Hey, we scared up a couple of big bucks. Why the hell didn't you shoot?" I says, "I didn't see him." He says, "You're lying, you son of a bitch. You got the buck fever." And then the others come. "Why didn't you shoot?" "He got the buck fever, the dumb Dutch bastard." So we go back to Dom's, and these guys start drinking the rest of the wild turkey. And then when he finishes that, Dom fetches out a gallon of Dago Red, and they start working on that. They start getting all red-eyed and ticked off, mumbling about how we was going to have to go back home without no deer, and why didn't you shoot? You ain't got buck fever. You better tell us, you bastard. So my mind's spinning a mile a minute. And I says, "Okay, I'll tell you the truth, but I'm only talking to Vinny." Well, me and Vinny, we go outside, and I says, "Look, Vinny, I didn't shoot out of respect." He says, "What do you mean out of respect?" So I says, "Look, Vinny, you know that gun that Mickey loaned me? Well, he took it off a dead German, and I got to thinking that maybe the gun was used to shoot a lot of Americans, like during the Battle of the Bulge. Hell, Dina Mercadio's son got shot during the war. Suppose it was this gun that got him." So I says, "I was damned if I was going to use this kraut gun to shoot any American deer." He says, "You expect me to tell those guys that crap? I'll never go for it." Well, I says, "It's the truth." So we go back inside, and Vinny explains how I didn't shoot out of respect. Well, you know how these Italians are, they're always talking about respect. So they're mumbling, out of respect, out of respect. Well, then Dom says, "Well, I ain't got no respect for this damn kraut gun." Grabs the Mauser by the barrel, runs outside, winds up and wraps the gun around the tree. Bang! Jeez, I thought, Dom's dead. We all go running outside, and Dom's sitting on the ground, holding his head going, "Oh my God, oh my God. Dom, are you hit?" "No, I'm okay. Oh my God." Vinny whispers, "Gee, kid, I told you to make sure the gun was unloaded." He says, "Yeah, I know." Anyways, we got to get back so we can go to work in the morning. And we load up the cars. Nobody's talking. And me and Vinny walk over to the truck, and he says, "Carl, you drive." And then he hollers over to Dom, "We'll leave first. You guys smoke a cigarette and try to catch us." We take off like a bat out of hell. And, them old Ford V8s are really fast. I was hitting 95 on the straightaway, no sight of Dom. And then just outside of Sailorsburg, I pick them up in the rearview mirror. They passed us on that long hill, yelling and screaming and giving us the finger. So I says to Vinny, "I guess they're over it." He says, "Yeah, forget it." I said, "What about Mickey's gun?" He says, "Don't worry, 9mm Mausers are a dime a dozen." "Yeah, but this one had an aluminum butt plate." "Don't worry, I'll handle it." Sure enough, a couple of days later, he picked one up for $15, aluminum butt plate and all. I took it over to Mickey's house one day when he was working through to 11 and left it with his old lady. He never said nothing, so I guess he never found out.